You're looking to get a new camera, upgrade your camera to a full frame, or maybe even going mirrorless. Maybe you even have the Canon EOS R. But if you're wondering if the camera is still good in 2022, the short answer is yes. Now, this camera has been released 4 years ago today in 2018. And you're wondering if it's still a good camera, and I'm gonna go a little bit in depth of how and why I still think this camera is still a good one for today. So, just so you all know that this is the camera that I use for all of my wedding films. I've never once had a couple come to me saying that the image wasn't great. They always came back saying that it's a beautiful image and never really complained about it. Now yes, the EOS R does have a crop in 4K, which does get a little annoying at times, and it is 1.7 times, so it almost feels like you're shooting on like a Super 35 sensor. But you kind of get used to it and you figure out the workarounds with that, and you actually have it so it works for you. Where the plus is on this for weddings is that you actually can be a little bit further away and still be getting a really good composition. But the downsides though is you're not gonna have as wide of a shot. So like this, I'm shooting on the R6 right now at 24mm, and I'm literally arm length away from the camera. If I wanted to get the same composition with the EOS R, I would have to have the camera probably about like 5 feet away from me. So there are pluses and minuses with that crop for 4K, but you kind of live and learn how to use it for yourself. Now, not to mention though that this camera was actually like about $2,500 back in 2018 when it first was released. Now you could get it for like $1,600. Now that actually outperforms any other camera that's in that price point. This camera has a 33 megapixel sensor, it shoots 4K, and it does 1080 and 60. Now it doesn't do 120, but how often are you really going to be shooting stuff in 120? Now it's not going to be like your super high-end camera that you can take on just any high-end job. It's going to be mainly for like weddings, real estate, you know, more of the freelancer community here, which is all that I do, and this camera has never once failed me. Now I've been using this camera for about 3 years, and in those 3 years I've accumulated a lot of accessories to help me utilize this camera in the best of its abilities. The first one here is I actually have the Ronin RS2. This is great that I use for all of my weddings. I put the camera on here just to keep it stabilized. The next one is the Cinema Build Out Kit. This is what I'll use for corporate work, or if I'm gonna go handheld with shooting some things. I helped this one company out shoot some weddings and they want me handheld, so this is what I run for that entire wedding. But I actually have a build for that, and you'll be able to see the video right up here. And then the last build out I do though is for corporate work, or if I'm gonna go and do senior photos, and it's really just putting the battery grip on here, which gives me the option of having the vertical buttons as well, so it's a little bit more ergonomic when I'm using this camera for photos. But what's more important than the specifications of a camera and how you build the camera out is knowing actually how to use a camera. And what I mean by that is just knowing how to get the right composition, knowing how to frame things up properly, knowing how to light properly is all gonna make a huge difference. You could have a really cheap setup, like you could go with something like an entry level, like a T6i or something with a kit lens, but you can make it look just as good as what this is right now. You don't need the best and latest gear for everything, so that's why I say the EOS R is still a great camera, because if you know how to shoot and know how to get the right composition and light things properly, you can make any camera look like a cinema, like high-end cinema camera. So you really shouldn't be worried too much about the specs. The Canon's EOS R is still one of the better cameras at that price point of $1,600. You really can't beat it because you're still getting that full frame look, and it's just gonna be a great camera overall. You could use it like I showed you here, a bunch of different situations on how you could use it, and like I said, I use it for all of my shoots just about, and it hands down always gets me a great image. So I really hope that gives you a little bit more insight on the EOS R, if it's still relevant in 2022. If it did, please give this video a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next.